With your CIGTV News Update, I'm Donna Bush. Thanks for joining us. A fire near the East End Quarry is out after many hours of a dozen firemen working and waiting to tackle the bushfire.
Yeah, it is a difficult area of the East End high ground to access via trucks and equipment, so it made it more difficult to deal with that situation simply because of those reasons. Luckily for us, last night we had the quarry opened for us in East End, and we were able to access it through the side, and then they assisted us throughout the night, basically with a front end loader, to clear some breaks around the entire fire for us that eventually helped us extinguish the fire. It was good, simply because it was a cool night, and we had devised a plan on what we would do. So it was just more or less a waiting game and strategically placing equipment throughout that area that if it did jump and break the line, we could have those extinguish those areas that got past the line. So all in all, it wasn't a bad night, but maybe it was tedious to just sit there and wait for it to come to us so we can deal with it,
Yeah, well, it was mainly from the police. They had the helicopter hovering above the site, and we had a live feed down to the control point at the ground, so we could see infrared imaging of the fire itself as to where it spread to, and potentially where it was going to spread to. So from that, we were able to come up with a strategy to extinguish the fire, and it also meant that our firefighters were in a much safer position to deal with the incident. As with all large incidents like this, I mean, we've had 2 protected incidents in the past week. We had the landfill fire last week, and this one where we were actually firefighting for a very long time. And with all of these incidents, the firefighters get stuck in, they're there for the duration, and that can rely on them to do a fantastic job every time.
The fire crews were on the scene of the fire pretty much all night last night, following reports received just before 6:30 p.m. The fire was fully extinguished around 3:30 this morning. However, crews remained on the site to watch for hot spots until after 5 in the morning. In other news, a new director of the MRCU has been appointed. A press statement says Dr. James Jim McNally will join the MRCU next week, coming from the Mosquito Control Division of Volusia County in Florida, where he has been director for more than 6 years. Now, Dr. McNally tells us that the Volusia County Mosquito Control Division is similar in size to MRCU and faces many of the same challenges relating to the control of nuisance mosquitoes, which have an impact on commerce and tourism, as well as controlling vector-borne diseases. Dr. McNally will begin his new position at the MRCU next Monday, the 5th of March. Well, if you want to learn more about the job of the Central Procurement Office, you can go online to their new website. The public can find all the information they need about procurement matters online at procure.gov.ky. The user-friendly site was under construction for the past year, and this week a soft launch was held for government officials and some private sector entities. The site has many features to help the public, including a frequently asked tab, and any unanswered questions, of course, can be emailed to cpo@gov.ky. Website users will notice that the new procurement law, which was passed in the Legislative Assembly late last year, is available for all to read, along with the procurement regulations that were approved in Cabinet recently. Both will come into effect on May 1st this year. Well, a project focusing on Cayman's hazardous materials management response plan is being sponsored by the UK's Foreign and Commonwealth Office. Recently, HMCI, the department responsible for coordinating the effort, organized stakeholder meetings. HMCI Deputy Director Danielle Coleman explains more.
The idea was we'd get all the stakeholders in place, and there's a number of stakeholders in Cayman who have a key part to play in that planning exercise. So last Monday we met with DEH, fire services, police, customs, port authority, a number of different agencies to make sure we all had a conversation, we could all communicate with each other as to what the plan should look like, what was the important things. We discussed roles and responsibilities, because that's a really key part of it. Who is responsible for what when something happens, especially when something escalates to a multi-agency approach. I mean, hazard materials are part of our everyday life. In our own households, they're everywhere. In our offices, in our businesses and so forth. It really has become part of something that really does affect us on a day-to-day basis. Things are coming in that we know about to Cayman. Obviously the customs are tracking those, as well as Port Authority. But what happens after that? It's really important to make sure that we're monitoring Once they leave the customs officers, once they leave the port, where do they go? How do they get there? The transportation of these goods. I mean, for example, we know the police will also escort dynamite when dynamite arrives on the island. But what about the other things? And also about what about happens when things react with each other? A lot of things we don't think about, pool products, for example, pesticides. What happens when they react with each other, or they might react under sunlight or heat or humidity, or just the storage where they're at. So one thing is the transport, but also the storage of these things once they get to the warehouse. How are they getting, looked after on a day-to-day basis? How are they maintained? And how do they get out there to where they're supposed to be at the end? The importance of having first responders all on the same page is crucial, actually, because in a multi-agency response, for example, a big spill of something, we tend to focus on fuel in the past, but it could be anything, or materials reacting together. We need to know what is there for one, how it's being stored. Without this kind of information, without the kind of roles already identified between the different agencies, we could have a lot of chaos. There could be fatalities, there could be a lot of property damage or environmental contamination. So we need to know where, in what kind of conditions these, well, for one, what kind of materials coming in and where it's going, but also how we can respond and how we can make sure that we're all working together in collaboration to any response, that we're all trained. I mean, one thing, a lot of the actual departments have their own plans or parts of plans, but how do we put all those plans together to make sure we're all responding in a way that there's communication and we're not operating in silo?
Ms. Coleman also reminds us that Cayman must have plans and standard operating procedures in place that are maintained and practiced regularly by all first responders who have a role to play in the response to an incident. Well, great news for existing and future students of the Sir John A. Cumber Primary School in West Bay. The school recently received a large donation of books from the Literacy is for Everyone organization, or LIFE. 4,300 reading books collected from various private sector firms and schools island-wide were donated to the school by the literacy-focused charity. Most of the books will be used towards enhancing individual classroom libraries, which LIFE started last year with their original donation, and will provide students with greater access to reading materials. To get more information about how you can be a part of the Classroom Libraries project, you can email life at books@life.org.ky or give them a call at 938-6300. That's 938-6300. If you missed today's news update, you can go to the Cayman Islands Government Facebook page as well as the CIG Television YouTube channel. For now, I'm Donna Bush, as always, thanking you for joining us, wishing you a wonderful night. I'll see you back here again tomorrow. Until then, bye-bye for now.